right, good morning. How's everybody? Everybody good? Good. Hold on one second. Hey, why don't you guys, could you grab that stand for me just a second? Thanks, appreciate it. Having a great day at camp? I'm glad, man. I'm pumped. Good to see y'all this morning. Here's what I want to do for a few minutes before we jump into our lesson to set you up for your group time. I want to talk about our quiet time stuff for just a minute. But it hit me. Seth, how are we looking? Is there a chance we're going to get that? We're trying to. I thought I would introduce you to my family. Thank you. I didn't really mention them last night. Just to give you a heads up, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been married for 22 years to Wendy. She's back there in the back. Hey, Wendy. She's waving one hand. Should she stand up and get embarrassed? She should. Yeah, stand up, just wave everybody. Hi. Awesome. Oh, and on stage, and then Seth, you're a miracle worker. Way to go, man. I just sent him the picture like literally 30 seconds ago. This is my family. My son, we're at Disney, and who is that? It's Elsa. It's not the real Elsa. It's a pretend Elsa. But we're meeting Elsa. That's my son. He's going into the 9th grade, and my daughter, who is going to be a 6th grader. So we love Disney and stuff like that. We like to have fun together as a family, and that's who we are, just to give you a little bit about where we're coming from. Well, here's why I wanted to mention Wendy to you. One of my favorite stories about my wife is an experience that she had at a camp much like this one when she was in 9th grade. And she had an experience where she had a quiet time every morning in the same place, same location. And it was a place, outdoors kind of place, and it was the same tree right by a lake. And God really used that quiet time each day to really do some awesome stuff in her life. And I'm really thankful for that, because that's when she started to sense maybe that she was supposed to be in ministry in some capacity, and here we are doing this together. And I say that just to say, man, your quiet time every morning, your devotional that you have, man, it's super important. Matter of fact, I want to take a moment each day, just right at the very beginning, just to highlight that for a second before we jump into our deal. So that said, here's what I'm wondering. Who could tell me a little bit about what the main verse was this morning? You're going to have to think back. So, yeah, awesome. Can I use this? Let's see, there's not a handheld here. Chance I could get a handheld real quick? Beautiful. I'm throwing these guys for a loop this morning. Y'all are very flexible. Thank you. Well, I don't mean like flexible like, well, you might be that too. Awesome. It's on. Great. I saw somebody. Was it you I saw? No. Was it you? Okay. Yeah. Come here. What's your name? Caleb. Okay. Hey, Caleb. Everybody say, hey, Caleb. Hey, Caleb. All right, man. So what was the main verse about? Do you remember?
The 3 things that we need to be a disciple.
3 things we need to be a disciple. Now, do you remember the 3 things?
We need to hang up our cross daily.
Take up a cross daily.
And we need to follow Jesus.
Is that one of them? Follow Jesus? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And we need to believe in Him.
Believe in Him. Is that number 3? I think number 3 might be a little bit different. What was number 3? Let me ask somebody else. Caleb, good job, man. Good job. What was number 3?
I think it was deny himself.
Deny. Yeah. Okay. So deny, take up the cross, and follow Jesus. Those 3 things, right? Yeah. Which is great. That's a really good verse if you think about it, man. And you think about what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, man. Those 3 things are super, super important. Now, it's okay if you want to look at your quiet time guide during this. That's fine if you want to pull out. Okay. Now, there was another question in there. It asked, what did that look like? What might that look like? And it even talked about Jonah, and it said something like, what might God be sending you or asking you to do? Do you remember that question? Yeah, so there's a question of like, what is something God may be asking you to do? And so I'm curious what some folks put for that. So, hi there.
I put talk to kids at school and...
That's okay. You've got them written down, so that's good. And what did you put?
I put to talk to him and to go on missionary trips.
Yeah, go on mission trips. That's great. Yeah. Somebody else? Let's go back here a little bit. Anybody back here? I'll come back to you. Yep. Anybody back in the back? Yeah, hey, what's up?
We should pray to Jesus.
Okay, pray to Jesus. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. What's up, man? You're way in there, so let me slide in here real quick. Yep.
We should go around the neighborhood and tell others about Jesus.
Okay, so tell people in your neighborhood about Jesus. Yeah. Did anybody have anything real real specific. Let me go to this other side here, be fair to this side. Anybody have anything like real specific that they sense God may be asking them to do that feels a little bit like Jonah? And we're going to talk about that story here in a few minutes. Yep.
We could start a Bible study at school.
Start a Bible study at school? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Somebody else? Was there somebody else back here had their hand up? Yeah, what's up, man?
Tell a neighbor.
Tell a neighbor? Yeah.
I have a neighbor who's not a Christian.
Oh, so you have a neighbor that's not a Christian. Yeah. That's a great idea. If you think about your neighborhood as a mission field, you could even take time to really, you could even draw out a map and really identify the different people in your neighborhood and consider ways to share Christ with them. So that's great. Well, good. Hopefully, you guys will really make sure that you're not wasting that time each and every morning, because, man, it is super important that you start off your day spending time in God's Word like that. So that's good. Well, hey, we're going to talk about, you guys are going to spend every day in group time, and leaders, this is where you get a chance to really talk with the students some and ask questions and unpack. And today, you're going to be jumping into this story of Jonah, right? So we're already kind of, the drama has really set this up. Are y'all liking the drama, man? Aren't they doing a great job with that? Yeah, man. I think it's awesome. And it's exciting to see how they're telling that story, and it makes it kind of fun to see it in a different way like that. So that's good. We're going to talk about Jonah, but I want to tell you a story about something I did that's a little bit like Jonah. It's not too horrible, I guess, but it's still not one of my favorite stories. But I just want to be honest with you and tell you a moment when I ran from God, right? So for me, because we're going to be talking about running from God today. Everybody say running from God. Okay, so you're going to be talking about running from God, and that's what Jonah did, right? God said, hey, go tell the Ninevites, and Jonah didn't want to do that, so he ran from God. Well, I had a moment where I ran from God, and it happened right when I graduated high school. Now, I mentioned to you I trusted Christ after my junior year of high school, and I really believed real quick that I was supposed to be a youth pastor. Like, that's what I wanted to do and what I felt like God was wanting me to do. And so when I graduated high school, though, I was the first, like my mom or dad, neither one of them graduated high school. And so education in my home wasn't real high on the list, and college there wasn't many people in our family at all that had gone to college, and I just did not have much confidence about going to college. Now, a lot of you, you're growing up and you're thinking, your parents are already talking about college maybe with you, or one day you think you'll go to college, and that's all great. But for me, I had an opportunity to go to this school called Mobile College. It's in Mobile, Alabama, and I went and checked it out, visited it, and everything worked great, and they accepted me and told me I could go to school there. But, man, I was just super nervous about going to school. The thought of going to school just wasn't real big on my list. I'd gone to a community college my first year after high school, and then it was during that year that I thought about going to the University of changed to the University of Mobile now, but Mobile College. And whenever it came time to decide to go, I got so nervous and I was so worried about going that I made the decision that I wasn't going to go to Mobile College, and that I was going to wait maybe another semester before I went. And so I put it off, and I called them and said, I'm not going to come. I'm going to put it off before I come. So basically, I was running from God in that moment because I sensed that God wanted me to go there, but I just was so afraid. I just didn't, and I didn't know if I could do it or not. Well, I was working at a drugstore called Revco. It's a little bit like a CVS. Y'all have CVS in your town, or maybe a Walgreens. It's a little bit like that. And I was working at the store, and I was just going to keep working there for that semester, and maybe decide to go like in January and start school in January instead. Well, something happened a couple weeks after I made that decision. My manager called me in to the office, and he said, hey, Chris, I need to let you know about something that's going on. And I was like, okay, what's up? Well, he says to me, he said, our store is closing, like it's going out of business. And I was like, what? Well, this was my job, right? And all of a sudden, I find this moment where the store's closing. And he said, we're all, there's not another store in town to go to or anything. So all of a sudden, I was out of a job. And so even though I'd run from God, and even though in that moment I was like, oh, great, what am I going to do now? I don't have a job. I decided to call the school. And this was about 2 weeks before school started. And I called the school and I said, is it too late? Is it too late to go? And they said, no, it's not too late. We'll work it out. We'll get you in. And so thankfully in that moment, and we're going to talk about second chances later this week as well, but God gave me a second chance. And sure enough, I went to the University of Mobile College, and I ended up going, and it was the start of just some awesome stuff. I met my wife Wendy there, and man, it's been incredible ever since as a result of what that started for me. That's a little bit like what we see in Jonah, where God was asking Jonah to do something, but Jonah was like, no, I don't want to do that. Matter of fact, that was awesome. Right here on the front row, she pushed her button on her umbrella, and it just popped up. Yeah, I notice all those things. I get distracted easy. Jonah. What do you know about Jonah? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Jonah. All right? Some of you might know this. There's a little bit of background for you as you get ready to do your family group time or your group time. Well, does anybody know what the name Jonah means? This will be impressive. Anybody? I didn't know. What do you think it means? Yeah, do you know? What? Messenger. No. Yeah, what? Nope. So the word Jonah means dove. It means dove. Yeah. I don't know that really matters this morning too much when it comes to what we're studying, but I thought it was interesting. I think learning these things is important. So yeah, the word Jonah means dove, and here's the deal. Jonah, now what was Jonah's job? Did anybody know that? What was that? Well, say it out loud. Just say it out loud. He was a prophet. He was a messenger, yeah. So he was, look, in the Old Testament, the way God communicated with his people is he would use a prophet, what's called a prophet. They were a messenger. So these people would show up to a town, show up to a group of people, and they would tell what God is saying. So we've heard of people like Jeremiah and Isaiah, and these are all prophets, right? Well, Jonah is one of these people, and his job is to speak for God, and he would tell stories, and he would talk about what God is telling people. So whenever, in this first part of the story, whenever God is calling Jonah, he's saying, hey, I want you to go tell the Ninevites that I'm going to destroy the city. Well, Jonah would have been used to this. This wasn't a surprise to Jonah that God was asking him to go tell somebody what God was saying. Okay, so this was common for him. Now, here's another thing, though, I want to mention this morning about the book of Jonah. Does anybody, when they hear the book of Jonah and they hear about Jonah being swallowed by a fish, does anybody kind of go, man, that's a wild story? Anybody think that's a wild story? I think that's a wild story. You know, the idea that a person was swallowed by a fish, that's pretty wild. Matter of fact, it's such a wild story that there are some people that don't believe it happened. There are some people, and I'm just being honest with you guys, there are some people who would say, oh, that didn't really happen that way. It's just a made-up story to illustrate something. But here's the deal. Here's what I want you to think about this morning as you get into this book, and read this story. God created everything, right? What did he create everything from? Nothing. Well, that's a hard concept to get into our minds. It's hard for us to even understand what that means. But here's what I believe. I believe God did in fact create everything from nothing. Now, you don't have to look around much when you start thinking about God and how awesome that is. You don't have to look around much to see how incredible creation is. Man, when you start looking at animals and all the different types of animals, when you start studying science and look at how our bodies are created and all what DNA does and all of these cells and all of this stuff and how it all had to happen a certain way, and God created it just perfectly so that everything works, right? Well, hey, if God created all of that and he created the world, isn't it possible that God could make it to where a fish swallowed a human being? Well, yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. And we're going to read a verse here in just a moment about that. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you right now, write this down if you can. Jonah 1:17 has a great word in it. that I want to highlight with you this morning. It says this. I don't know if you've ever noticed this morning. I'll be honest. Prior to doing this camp and getting ready for this story, I'd never noticed this word before. But this is the New American Standard Version, but it says this, and the Lord, so this is after they cast Jonah out of the RV. Wait, I mean, boat? Yeah, right? So it says, and the Lord, listen to this word right here. And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the stomach of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. You know what that word appointed means? It means made. It means designed to do. This word appointed in this moment, it literally means that God, once Jonah was thrown overboard, that God had a fish ready and told that fish, made that fish swallow Jonah. Which is incredible because that means that this was part of God's plan all along. Now, if we believe the Bible and we believe things like God's creation, not only that, we look at how Jesus, whenever he was walking on the earth, he healed people and he did all the miracles that he did. He walked on water, all these things. Well, it's not hard to imagine that it could have been a fish that maybe still exists today, or it could have been a fish that God created just for that very moment. We don't know. But what I do believe is that when we read the story, it really did happen. All right, so that said, let's take a look this morning. Let's take a look this morning at the story of Jonah. All right, so grab your Bibles, turn to the book of Jonah. Now, what I mentioned yesterday, if Jonah's one of those books that's hard to find in the very front of your Bible, there's this little thing called, it's just a table of contents. All right, so if you have a hard time finding it, look in there. You can go, where is it? You can find it. So I'm looking through here. Mine's on page 1003, all right? That's great to memorize those if you can, memorize the books. But, if you can't or you just haven't yet, it's okay to look in that table of contents and find these books. You shouldn't be embarrassed about that. Jonah, chapter 1, and we're just going to look at a few verses this morning together before you go to your family group time, all right? What time does group time start, by the way? I forgot to look at that before I came in. What time? 10:15? Oh, beautiful. Y'all gonna have a good time. Okay. If you're ready, say, oh, yeah. All right, here we go. Chapter 1, beginning in verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Now, let me tell you a little secret here. Let me tell you this. Everybody look up here. You ever watch your pastor on Sunday mornings say really big words like Amittai? Can I just give you a secret? Just so you know how to do this. If you just say it with confidence, nobody really knows. Anyway, like it may be pronounced Amittai, but this word's been around so long that we don't know 100% like how it was pronounced then. So if you just, when you get to words like that and you're reading in class, if you just go, you're just reading and you're just like, hey, and came to Jonah, son of Amittai, go to the great city of Nineveh, you just keep going, all your friends are just going to be like, dude, he knows what he's talking about, or she knows what she's talking about, I'm not going to question that. So that's a little secret for you. When you find big words in the Bible, just read right through them, unless it's just one of the common words, like Nineveh, that we all say Nineveh, and you go, Nineveh, then they may go, in that moment they may be like, dude, it's not Nineveh, it's Nineveh. And so, but Amittai, I mean, I don't know, that might be right, but it may not be. Okay, verse 1, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come before me. Now, Nineveh was a tough town. It was a bad town, lots of bad stuff. It was a pretty big city for that day. Lots of people lived there, but there was lots of really bad stuff, lots of cheating, lying, inappropriate things going on in this city. And Jonah knew that. Like this city, people that lived in during the time, Jonah, they would have known that Nineveh was not a great place and that the Ninevites were not nice people. And so Jonah, man, right off the bat, he's like, no, I really don't want to go there. Now, guys, listen, you may have kids at your school that if you think about your school for a second, you're like, man, there's some kids at my school, they're kind of bad kids. They're kind of, they don't talk nice, or they don't talk the way they're supposed to, or they don't act the way they're supposed to. And And you may even think, man, I really don't want to hang out with them a lot. Well, I don't know that you need to become best buddies with all those kids, but there may be a moment where God says, hey, I want you to be nice to one of them. And we might be like, yeah, but they don't deserve it because they don't love God and they're not Christians. Well, that would be like Nineveh. That's what you want to think of. That would be your Nineveh, okay? So here he is. But Jonah, verse 3, but Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. So Wendy and I, a little over a year ago, we were able to go to Israel. And we had a chance to go to Israel. It's really awesome to get to go there. And we went to Joppa. Actually, we went to Tarshish and then went down to Joppa where he found a ship. So we went there right in that little area right there. But you could see how big the ocean is. You could see right there where Jonah would have caught a ship to sail and get away from everything, right? So as he was headed to Tarshish, went down to Joppa right there. So it was that Joppa area. And it was pretty incredible to stand there, but to look out and see, sure enough, that's where Jonah would have got on the boat and got out and headed out into the water, right? So Jonah, man, he's running from God, okay? Everybody say, running from God. Because that's what we're talking about this morning. So then some bad stuff happens, right? Then some bad stuff happens. Now, we don't want to get ahead of the story because we're going to be talking about it each day. But here's what we want to do this morning as you get ready to talk in your group time. Are you ready? We want to talk about just a few things that running from God equals. Now, everybody, if you're able to write this down. Running from God equals saying no to God, okay? So when you think about running from God, it's basically saying no to God. Now, if your parents, if they tell you to do something and you say no to them out loud, you may get in trouble for that, right? You pay a consequence for that. But do you have to actually say no out loud to say no? Like if your parents say, hey, go clean your room, and you go upstairs and you don't clean your room, isn't that the same thing as saying no to your parents? Well, yeah, that's the same thing as saying no to your parents. So I want you to think about whenever we talk about running from God, because in this story, Jonah, he gets on a ship, a boat, and he goes out into the water, and we're like, man, that's huge. Like, that really is running from God. He's like going to a different place. We may be thinking of that like, that's big. But what I want y'all to remember is running from God is this idea of saying no to God, and it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It could be something small. Remember that? So don't forget that. It could be something small, but it's just saying no to God. God says to do something, and you say no to God. That's running from God. Well, here's a few things. If you want to write them down, you can. Here's a few things to highlight as you think about this and as you go into your groups. And one thing you're going to talk about in your groups also is you're going to talk about how far Jonah was running from God. And in the books, I'm pretty sure you have a map, and you're going to actually take a look at that, which is awesome. Well, here's the thing. Running from God, saying no to God, here's a few things, a few observations. Here's a few things you can learn about running from God. Number one, you ready? It starts with the little things. It starts with the little things. Now, students, listen. I hope you hear this morning. Satan is not going to tempt you to all of a sudden go rob a bank. He's not going to start there. He's not going to tempt you to all of a sudden go home and just start saying, Mom, I'm not doing anything you say ever again. Because most of us in this room would go, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous. See, Satan doesn't tempt us with, start off tempting us with these really big things. Hey, students, look up here. Listen, he starts off with little things. It works like this. Let's talk about bad language for a second. When you're maybe in 4th grade or 5th grade, before you get to middle school, the thought of saying like a bad word, like a cuss word, like a sure enough cuss word, and you know what cuss words are, right? We all know what cuss words are, okay? The thought of saying a cuss word, you're like, dude, I would never say that word. Like, man, there's no way I would say that word. And you know what? In your mind, in that moment, you would never say that word. But here's what happens. You don't all of a sudden start saying all the bad cuss words, but you start saying words that are maybe used instead of cuss words, right? And you start using these words. And you just start slipping it here and there. And then you know what? The first time you say it, you're kind of like, you feel a little guilty. But then you say it again, and you're like, you don't feel quite as guilty. So it starts off with a little thing. But then before you know it, you're maybe with a group of friends, and maybe they're using bad language as well. And then before you know it, all of a sudden, boom, you're using cuss words. Now that's one way that happens. Another way is even lying to your parents, possibly. The idea, if I looked at you, man, would you ever lie to your parents? You'd be like, man, I would never lie to my parents. I would never lie to my parents. And that, because that's a big thing. You know, you're like, man, I would never do that. But it starts off because the older you get, the more choices you get. Did you hear that, students? Listen, the older you get, the more choices you get. See, when you're a little kid, your mom and dad kind of rule your life, right? But as you get older, you get to start making choices. And so whenever you start making choices, before you know it, starts off with a little, maybe just people call that a white lie, all right? Which is what they think may be a small lie. And you just kind of, you kind of imply to your mom and dad, did you clean your room? Yes. Yeah, I cleaned my room. But you know that you only kind of cleaned your room, and you just did barely enough, and really you didn't. You just kind of went up there and maybe shoved everything under the bed or something, right? Or in the closet. And you know what your parents mean, right? You know what but you're like, oh yeah, I cleaned my room. Was that the worst lie ever? Well, man, it's not the worst lie ever, but is it a lie? See, here's the thing. Here's what I want you to remember. It starts off with a small thing. It starts off with a little thing, and it leads to this idea of running from God. Now, students, listen. You show me, everybody look, you show me a kid in your town that's a high school student that's not living for God, that is making horrible choices, man. They're partying, doing things they shouldn't do, you know. I will show you a kid that most likely it started off with little things, and then it led to big things. So what I'm trying to say to you is, remember that running from God starts off with something small, leads to something big. Number two, here's another thing I want you to think about. When it comes to running from God, here's what happens. Here's a consequence of running from God, if you will. We're going to talk about consequences a little more in a minute, but one of the things that happens is it causes us to miss out on the blessing of seeing God do something awesome. Did you catch that? When we run from God, when God asks you to do something and we run from God, you know what happens? You miss out on getting to see God do something awesome. Now, there's a great story in Scripture where this happens. Anybody ever heard of Moses? Raise your hand if you've heard of Moses. Beautiful. Awesome. Now, God spoke to Moses in kind of an unusual way. Does anybody remember what that was? What was it? A burning bush. Yeah, right. So Moses is out. He sees a burning bush, and he's like, I need to go check out why this bush is burning, but yet it's not burning up. It's burning, but it's not like disappearing. It's just on fire and stays on fire. So he goes and he checks this out, right? Well, what does God tell Moses he is going to do at the burning bush? Yes. Well, Moses takes off his shoes because he's on holy ground, but God has an assignment for Moses. What is that assignment? Go free the people, right? They're in Egypt, they're slaves, and they're having to do all this work for Egypt. And God's like, I'm going to free the people. So Moses, I need you to go to. Now, who did he go talk to? Remember? The Pharaoh. The Pharaoh is the main guy in Egypt. He's kind of a big deal. He's the kind of guy that if he snaps his finger and says, kill that guy, his guards will kill that guy. He's got a lot of power, right? And so he says, Moses, I want you to go to Pharaoh and tell him to free all the Israelites. Well, Moses at first is like, yeah, I don't know about that. Like, I'm not real good. Who am I even going to say sent me? Like Like, why are they going to listen to me? And this is why God says, you tell them that I am sent you, that God sent you. So Moses is like, okay, well, here's what happens to the end of the story. God keeps telling Moses what he's going to do, but 5 times, at least 5 times, Moses said to God, are you sure that I'm the right guy? And then Scripture says, listen to this right here. I want to read this part to you. It's awesome. Scripture says, right here it says, in verse 14 of Exodus 4, because Moses says, please, Lord, now send the messenger by whomever you will. Send somebody else, please. It's like the 5th time Moses is saying no to God, trying to run from God. And there's what happens. Then the anger of the Lord burned against Moses. Ooh. You know what that means? That means God's ticked at Moses. The anger of the Lord burned against Moses, and he said, I'm going to interpret a little bit. It's basically, he's like, okay, fine. Is there not your brother Aaron, the Levite? Now, up to this point, God had called one person to do the job of going and talking to the Pharaoh. Who? Moses. God wanted to use Moses. But 5 different times, Moses is like, God, I'm not so sure. I don't think I'm the guy, all that. And it says, is there not your brother Aaron the Levite? I know that he speaks fluently, and moreover, behold, he is coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. And he goes on to say, Aaron can help you. Aaron can help you do this. Well, you know what? Moses missed out on a blessing right there. What blessing did he miss out on? Well, he missed out on the blessing of being used by God the way God designed. God wanted to send Moses in that moment. But Moses was so unsure about it and so unwilling to do it by himself that he eventually had to send Aaron. And what we do know is that when it all comes down to it in the end, Moses does not get to enter the promised land because of his struggles. Guys, listen. Moses missed out on an opportunity because he ran from God. I want to give you another illustration, though, about somebody that did not run from God, and as a result, they saw a blessing. Has anybody ever heard of Elizabeth Elliot? Leaders, adults. Jim Elliot is a great missionary. Great story. Shadow of the Almighty, leaders. A great book if you want to read, just a fascinating book. Jim Elliot is a missionary who was killed by an Indian tribe. I think it's pronounced the Aku. It's something like that. But, in the 50s, in the 1950s, there was this guy, and his name was Jim Elliot. He was married to this woman named Elizabeth. And they had a 10-month-old child. And Jim felt called to go into the jungles and share Christ with tribes of people that had never heard the gospel before. Well, Jim and 4 other missionaries, they went to this. They found this place where they could land a small plane, and they found this Aku Indian tribe. And when they finally made a decision to go and share Christ, it was going to be their first contact. The 5 missionaries landed, and all 5 missionaries were killed by those Indians that day. They were all speared and killed that day. So here's Elizabeth Elliot. She's back, not at home, but she's near there, but in a safer area. She has a 10-month-old child, right? And this is right around 1956. Okay, right around 1956. That's a long time back, but all these missionaries were killed. Elizabeth Elliot, 10-month-old child. Check out what she did within 2 years. In 1958, she and another lady by the name of, it's Nate Saint. It's Rachel Saint. Nate Saint's another one of the missionaries was killed with Jim. Well, Elizabeth and Rachel went and lived with the tribe of Indians that killed the husband and what was Rachel's brother, Nate. So Elizabeth, they went and lived. Now, can you imagine if somebody you loved was killed by someone, and then you forgiving them and actually going and sharing Christ with them. Doesn't that sound, that sounds kind of foreign to us. But you know what Elizabeth did was she sure enough went and lived with those people. They took the Bible, they learned the language, and they took the book of Mark, and they interpreted it and wrote it in their language so that they could understand it. And as a result of that, man, you talk about a moment where it'd be easy to run from God. God, I'm not going to live with the people that killed my husband. That's crazy, right? But she felt so strongly that God wanted them to share the gospel that she went and lived. And as a result of not running from God, what did she get to experience? The blessing of a group of people coming to know Christ. And even one of the villagers that was part of the tribe that killed these 5 missionaries came to Christ. And it's just an incredible story. Incredible story. So, number 1, running from God starts out with little things. Number 2, causes us to miss out on the blessing of seeing God do something awesome. And then finally, and we're going to talk about this later this week, no doubt, but finally, everybody say finally. It's a lot to take in this morning, I know, but finally, here it is. Finally, it leads to consequences that are not good. Running from God leads to consequences that are not good. Hey, students, listen, please. Man, if you don't listen to God, if you say no to God, what's another word for that? No. What? Sin. Who said that? Right here up front? Somebody say that? Yeah? Sin. Yeah. Look, running from God, saying no to God is sin. And there's always a consequence. Now, what is a consequence? That's kind of a big word. Think about it for a second. What's the consequence? Well, a consequence is you do one thing, and as a result of doing the one thing, something happens. Right? Makes sense? You do one thing, and as a result of doing this one thing, something happens. You exercise so you get healthier. You don't exercise, and then behold your future. Listen. It's a consequence. So that's what the consequence is. Students, please don't miss this. What you really need to remember this week, one of the things I hope God's teaching you is that when you run from God, and you're going to talk about this in a few minutes in your group, when you run from God, man, there's a consequence. There's going to be a consequence. Something's going to happen as a result of that sin. It might mean that you miss out on something. It might mean that somebody else that really needs to be blessed is not going to be blessed because you weren't faithful and true. So keep that in mind as you study this. Now, here's what I want to encourage you all to do, okay? It's really easy. You're about to go to group time, and I want to help the leaders here this morning. Man, when you go to group time, man, make sure you're helping your leader. Your leader's going to get tired this week, at some point. Make sure that you're listening, that you're not a distraction to the group, and that when they're asking questions, that you're not answering by saying yes or no only. Okay? You know what I mean by that? Hey, like they ask a question and you're like, yes. And so try to explain your answers and think through and be willing to think through some hard stuff. Okay? Sound good? Sound good? All right, good. Well, you guys are doing great. I know I'm giving you a lot of heady stuff. We're going to pray. A lot of deep stuff here. Cody, are you coming back up for a sec to give directions? Awesome, man. Come on up. And I'm going to pray while Cody's coming up. All right, God, thank you so much for letting us just talk about this story. Thanks for loving us the way you do, giving us this awesome camp to come to. And I just pray that each student here in just a few minutes, as they talk about this story, as they do their group time, God, that you would help these moments to be just really, really powerful, where they'd be able to really think through some deep stuff and just really this idea of running from you. Help us to really understand and comprehend how that's just not a good thing, and that we need to be careful about running from you. So I pray for this group time. I pray for the leaders that you would give them, just your Spirit would speak through them and help them to ask the right questions and just do something awesome. God, we love you. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. Cody, all you, man.